Okay, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am still in the woods, and we're going to continue on solving quadratic equations. And today what we're going to do is a new topic, which is solving by what we call completing the square. Now, completing the square is an interesting topic, and we're going to need to use something that's called a perfect square trinomial. Now, a perfect square trinomial is pretty awesome because a perfect square trinomial is something that is equal to x plus or minus something squared. Alright? So something that is equal to x plus or minus something squared. Some examples. X squared plus 10x plus 25. That's a perfect square trinomial because it's equal to x plus 5 squared. X squared minus 14x plus 49. That's a perfect square trinomial because it's equal to x minus 7 squared. Alright? These are all perfect square trinomials. Now, one of the most powerful things we're going to talk about is how to turn a trinomial into a perfect square trinomial. And what we're going to need to notice, and you can notice it in both the examples, is that c is equal to half of b squared. All right? Notice c is 25. That's half of b, which is 10. So half of 10 is 5, squared, which is 25. Half of negative 14 is negative 7. Squared is 49. All right? So if we want to turn something into a perfect square trinomial, all we're going to do is take half of b and square it, and that gives us the c to make something a perfect square trinomial. All right, let's take an example. All right, now this is not a perfect square trinomial because c does not equal half of b. Let's just cross that 9 out. It's bothering me. So I need to fill in the blank to make this a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to take half of 8, which is 4. I'm going to square it to give me 16. All right? So that now is a perfect square trinomial. Let's try another one. C is always positive because you're squaring something. You square a positive, it's positive. You square a negative, it's positive. All right, let's try this. Half of 20 is 10. Squared is 100. Let's do one more. Let's try half of negative 12 is negative 6 squared is 36. Again, it's going to be positive because even a negative squared is a positive number. All right, that's our first Dillard. All right, let's come back up so I can use the top of this. Now let's actually solve these things. By using our entire process. And I'm going to attach something here that has our steps for you. And I'm going to use one of the trinomials that we already dealt with. And that's x squared plus 8x plus 9. So the first thing we need to do is turn this into a perfect square trinomial. All right. Now, this is not a perfect square trinomial because this 9 is not equal to half of 8 squared. So I don't want this to be a 9. Stop being a 9. All right. So I don't want it to be a 9. What I want it to be is a perfect square trinomial. So half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. So I need to figure out what I need to do to turn this into 16. I need to add 7. Of course, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So now I have x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 7. That is, in fact, a perfect square trinomial on the left. Now, next step, I'm going to factor this puppy. And when I factor this, all right, basically, I'm turning it into something squared. And that something is always the x, and then half of this b. So this is half of 8 is 4. So that's x plus 4. Quantity squared. That plus looks terrible. Let me fix it. X plus 4 squared. Now, we kind of use some of our skills from when we solved by taking square roots. I want to get rid of that squared. I want to get that x by itself. So I'm going to square root both sides. And now I'm left with x plus 4. And remember, we have a plus or minus with this. Plus or minus the square root of 7. We can't break that down. If we could break it down, we would. But we can't, so we won't. And then I just subtract the 4 from both sides to get the x by itself. And I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 7. All right, and that's our final answer. We circle it. All right. It's a weird form to have our final answer as, but it's the form we're going to use. You could get a decimal here, but this is an exact, or excuse me, two exact. It's two answers because of the plus minus answers, whereas a decimal would only be one. Let's try one where we're going to get whole numbers. All right, let's try x squared minus 12x plus, let's go with 30 equals 3. All right? I don't want this to be a 30, right? This is not a perfect square trinomial, so I need to turn it into a perfect square trinomial. Stop being a 30. I want this to be a 36. The reason I know I want it to be a 36 is I take half of the negative 12, which is negative 6, square it, and I get 36. Now I need to figure out how to turn 30 into 36. Well, I just add 6 to both sides. That's x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals 9. All right, now we have a perfect square trinomial on the left. Now we're going to factor it into something squared. And if you went through your factoring skills, which we've dealt with a lot in the past few weeks, few months, I guess, all right, you could actually factor this, using our normal skills. However, shortcut for completing the square is it's always going to be the variable, and then half of this. Half of minus 12 is minus 6. So now we're to that particular step. We're going to square root both sides. The square and the square root cancel out because they're inverses, they're opposites. I'm at x minus 6. 9 is a perfect square. So my solution is going to be plus minus 3. I'm going to add my 6. Now this is tricky, all right? This does not turn into plus or minus 9. What's going to happen is I have to add the 6 to both 3 and to negative 3. So 3 plus 6, I get my first answer, 9. And negative 3 plus 6, I get my second answer, 3. Boom, bam, bam. Excuse me, it's hot out. All right, one more example. Let's get a good number. Let's plus 4x minus 8 equals 0. All right, first step, turn this into a perfect square trinomial. Stop being a negative 8. I don't want you to be a negative 8. I want it to be a 4. How do I know this negative 8 should be a 4? Well, I take half of 4, which is 2, square it, which turns it into 4. Well, now I need to turn negative 8 into positive 4. To turn negative 8 into positive 4, I need to add 12. Remember, you have to do that to both sides. I'm left with x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 12. All right, now this is in fact a perfect square trinomial. I'm going to factor this into something squared. That something is going to be x plus 2 squared. Again, variable, half of this. Square root both sides. That's x plus 2. Now this one's a little trickier. We can break down this radical. 12 is 4 times 3. 4 is 2 times 2. That's on the outside. That doesn't have a pair. That's on the inside. So we get an x plus 2 equals plus or minus 2 root 3. We subtract the 2 from both sides. We get negative 2 plus or minus 2 root 3. And then that is our final answer. All right? So 3 slightly different types, but our process is the same. All right? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right? I hope everyone had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. All right? I'll show you the little mini waterfall down here. It's beautiful. Yeah. Have a good one.